Pleasant Grove City Council on this Tuesday, August the 6th, 2019. And welcome all of the council members who are here this evening, along with the majority of our city staff. And also we would like to welcome those who have joined us from the public in our audience this night. We would like to start out with the Pledge of Allegiance by Captain Smith, after which Eric Jensen, council member, will give us the opening remarks. Captain Smith.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear and kind Heavenly Father, as we humbly bow our heads before thee at the opening of this city council meeting, we ask our prayers may be with those who have been afflicted, and our hearts are saddened by the events that have taken place this week, and we ask that our prayers and thoughts will be with those who have been affected. We ask a blessing be upon the first responders and our military personnel who serve this country so well. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to meet in this wonderful facility, and we ask that we know to be civically minded and mindful of all those who come to listen and to share their thoughts. Again, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to be part of this wonderful community, and we say this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ.
Amen. Thank you, Brett and Eric. Approval of tonight's minutes. I'd like to have our city administrator go over the changes that we have this evening, and then we'll have a motion on it.
Okay. So on our agenda tonight, item 9B was scheduled to be a public hearing regarding amending our transportation master plan or our vicinity plan within the transportation master plan at the request of a developer who wanted to put a development in and do something contrary to what our vicinity plan was. The applicant has dropped their application for the moment. They are going to redo their plan and figure out a different way maybe to do their development. So because of that, we do not need to hold this public hearing. There might be people in the audience that received a notice that are here tonight that were told that they would have an opportunity to speak regarding this item. Since the item has been pulled, there's not really a reason for us to have a public hearing because now it's not under consideration. We're not exactly sure what the developer's plans are at this moment. They will resubmit their plan and then we'll address it at that time. If the plan meets all the city codes, then it won't need to come back in front of the city council. The reason this was in front of you is because they were asking for an exception to our transportation master plan. So if we do have individuals, I don't know if we have individuals here that were here to speak to that, they're more than welcome to take 3 minutes in our open session. It just as a city, since we don't have an active application to address, there's probably not a whole lot we can say in regards to that particular development. Also, item 10B is a final subdivision plat that we just need to postpone. Because it's not a public hearing, we don't need to do that date certain. We can just postpone it indefinitely. And then when everything's set for that, we'll just bring it back to you on the next available agenda. So 9B, we need to cancel. 10B, we need to postpone. That's our two changes.
All right, thank you. Okay, with striking 9B and postponing 10B, ask for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda with the following changes of the removal of 9B or continuing 9B.
Removal of 9B. We will not be continuing it.
And continuing 10B
That's right.
and continuing 10B.
We have a motion by Councilmember
Second.
Williams and a second by Councilmember Lamone. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll now move on to our open session. And as our city administrator asked, if there's anyone who'd like to come forward and address it on this about the item we struck, they're welcome to come forward along with other people who would like to address the council this evening. please come forward at this time.
Not just about that one item, right?
Yeah.
Anything you want.
Okay. I'd hate to have you tell me to sit down.
Would you state your name for us?
My name is Darrell Weaver, and I live at 473 North, 1180 East. I struggle with whether or not I should come up. I'll try and be as brief as possible. On June 15th, someone almost took 2 of my children. 2 women, one woman in her 50s, and a teenage girl pulled up in a white Honda Odyssey, or a white Honda, 4-door, black grille, no license plate on the front, and offered my children a ride home. I offered them candy, told them it was okay, they could get into their car, and my sons kept resisting, and until finally the women realized they weren't going to get them. They looked around, making sure no one saw them, turned around, and then hauled tail out of there. My boys ran up to my house, just a few houses away, told me about it. I jumped in my car and ran down there to try and see if I could find them. And I drove up and down the streets for a few minutes, and at 7:38 I called the police, and an officer was dispatched. The officer got there and listened to my boy's story, patted him on the head, told them they did a good job and they were brave. Never took any notes. Never called it in. Didn't issue a BOLO. And these 2 monsters got away. I went out every night. The police failed me. I went out every night. I walked from my house all the way to Macy's. I stopped at every house that had cameras, and I begged them for footage, trying to find anything. I went to the businesses. They wouldn't work with me because I wasn't a police officer. A few would, and I have a few images, but no license plates. If we would have had that 10 minutes, if the officer would have put out a be on the lookout for, we could have caught these 2 women. Instead, they took off and they preyed on somebody else's children. I'm really upset. Anger doesn't describe the way I feel. It's a deep rage. Someone tried to take my children, and nothing was done. So I contacted the Unified Police Department. I have a friend that works there. He said they weren't contacted. None of the local departments were contacted. And we lost that 10 minutes. We lost the footage because it's been erased because cameras copy over the hard drive. So they're out there. And it wasn't arbitrary that they came from I-15 all the way up to where I live. You have to know how to get up there. You don't just arbitrarily go up there. They almost took 2 of my children. I would have only found a bicycle on the side of the road and nothing, no information. So I'm asking, what is the protocol? Why was this ball dropped? I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble, but this needs to be changed. I'm upset. It really, really frustrated me. I really wanted to hurt somebody. I can't tell you how angry I was. But I'm a substance abuse therapist. I see the dark side of the world every day, and I know what happens. If my children would have been taken, they would have been dead within 7 hours on average if they hadn't been sold into sex slavery. And that's wrong. And I want the city to do something. What is the protocol?
Okay, thank you. We'll have you get with Captain Smith, and he'll give you what the protocol is, okay?
Appreciate it.
Anyone else like come forward? If not, we'll now close our open session and move on to item 6, our consent items, and ask the council if anybody has any questions or on the consent items that have been listed on our agenda. If not, I'd ask for a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve tonight's consent items.
We have a motion, and we have a second by Councilmember Walker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We do not have any board, commission, committee assignments, appointments this evening. Move to our presentations. Move to 9A, our public hearing. 9A, continued public hearing, continued public hearing to consider for adoption ordinance in 2019-16, amending City Code Section 10-14-24-1-C3, the Pleasant Grove Commercial Sales District, conditional use permits by changing the conditions and requirements for an establishment of use number 6399, recreation centers within the Grove Zone. Director, where is this located? Have you got a map for us tonight?
For sure. I do.
Great.
Oh, always have maps. Let me see how I can set this up. There we go. All right, Mayor, Council. Let me see. Let's start with a map, because who doesn't like maps, right? So this is a map of the Grove Zone. Okay, this is the entire area that is right here. In this, within this red line, that's the Grove Zone. Recently, just add this baby right there into our city. So the situation is that in the Grove Zone, we have 3 different sub-districts. They are different to each other, right? We have the interchange sub-district. You can see this, what color is that? I was gonna say skin color, but we all have different skin colors, right? So,
Colorblind, so
it-
I won't be able to it's good there.
so we have this one right here. This is the interchange sub-district. Then we have kind of like little pockets of mixed housing right here, right? This is kind of like more pinkish color. And then we have this bright salmon color, which is this area right here. That's our commercial sales sub-district. Each one of these sub-districts has its own table with a list of permitted uses and with a list of conditional uses. Each of them, they vary. Some of them are the same, but so many others are completely different. When we were developing, when we were thinking about the creation of this zone, we had kind of like a purpose, we have an idea, we have a goal in mind, and we wanted to allow for this sub-district right here, which actually I did another map, which is gonna be an aerial map, is gonna only have within the yellow lines, that's what we call the commercial sales sub-district. In that commercial sales sub-district, we had a policy, a goal, something that we want to accomplish, and we want to make sure that we had some, that we were providing some good depots for the people to collect some sales tax. We were creating that zone to make sure that we were going to be friendly for businesses, especially for ones that will give us any type of revenue toward the city, correct? So when we were working on that in, what was it, 2015, someone, a developer, came and worked out with Aroma Tools. You guys remember, maybe some of you were here around that time. So some of you guys were on the Planning Commission around that time, I think, right?
Yes.
So when Aroma Tools came,
Roma Tools is right there.
sorry. No, this is, where's Aroma Tools?
There's doTERRA right
Here's
there.
doTERRA. It's
It's
right.
Roma Tools.
Right in that corner, right in that.
It's right there. Sorry about that. You see white on white. Yeah, I'm gonna get a refund for my LASIK. So when Aroma Tools came into it, they came out with a multiple story type of building, right? So they came out with something like that, and they had this own business in mind. But one thing that they proposed around that time was to come out with reception center, right? That was their idea. Around that time, the Planning Commission, the City Council, they decided, you know what, a reception center is not something that we're very interested at this moment, at that time. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it a conditional use, number one, the reception centers, and we're gonna put 3 very specific conditions on it, okay? So in case any reception center eventually wanted to come anywhere within these yellow lines, they needed to comply with these 3 conditions or these 3 restrictions, okay? So we decided that the use was gonna be 6399 and it was gonna be reception centers with the three conditions. So what happens is around that time, I got lost again, right here. Around that time, none of these developments, we didn't have the hotel, we didn't have what the offices right here. Recently, we've been working on this, the McKay Christensen property. Around that time, the hospital hadn't been proposed, and some other businesses around the boulevard hadn't been there. And so we were hoping to preserve those areas for retail uses or for uses that were allowed in the zone. Now, recently, just a couple months ago, an applicant approached us, and their idea was to come up with a food truck park. Okay, so when the idea came to a food truck park, staff got super excited because this is it was kind of like a new concept, and we always welcome food, correct? So the applicant started, especially good food too. They started looking for venues, for areas, for lots where they can do that. I was thinking, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Soho. The Soho concept is a food truck little park in Holiday, Utah, which is, I mean, it came as a new idea, and people start attract a lot of people in there. So the applicant started looking for that, and the applicant Claire Moon found that a piece of land along the boulevard, right here along the boulevard, where she could establish that use. Obviously, that's a permitted use in the zone. It's food. It has to do with restaurants. It provides for a sales tax. And in the site plan, the idea was to have the food truck park in the front along the boulevard, so it's easy with accessibility and easy. It could be seen from the road. But in the back, the proposal is to come up with a single-story building that will have the theme of a train station. Okay, so that was the idea. And the idea is people will go buy the food from the food trucks and go sit down on a nice shade area inside a building where the applicant will sell the drinks. Great concept, great idea. It was obviously received with open arms from the staff. And eventually, as this concept started developing, the applicant come up with the idea and say, okay, how about if I use that big building in the back, which eventually will come to you guys for approval, I can use that during the time when the food trucks are not there as a reception center, correct? So what happened is that we obviously always go look into the table of uses that we have, and at this point, let's only focus on the black lettering, okay? Because this is how it was. This is how the code it is right now. This is the existing code. Please disregard the scratching. So this is how the crossing, disregard the crossing. This is how the code is right now. So as a conditional use in the zone, in the commercial sales subdistrict, we have use 6399, again, under the conditional uses, and we say 6399 is for reception centers only because 6399 includes all the non-elsewhere classified uses. But we say, hey, no, only reception centers. But, number one, shall not be located on a ground level. Now, if we think about back, what happened with Aroma Tools, it was a multiple-story building, so we didn't want the reception center to be in the main floor. We wanted Aroma Tools to be there, and maybe in the second floor to be the reception center. So again, right now, as a conditional use, if someone wants to bring a reception center in the zone, the reception center cannot be on the ground level. Number two, shall not occupy more than 20% of the total square footage of a building where they are housed, okay? And number three, which is very important, shall only accompany an active use that is permitted in this section. Meaning you have a use that is permitted, again, Aroma Tools, and then you can have it right there, okay? Well, based on these conditions, it's hard to have a reception center, for example, in the building that I just described. Okay, again, it's going to be on the ground level. It's a single-story building. It obviously will be more than 20%. It will be a different time. Okay, so the applicant searched for a code amendment. Now, this is what it was presented to the Planning Commission. But before I go there, let's notice that right here says shall only accompany an active use that is permitted in this section. It's not very specific. You say as long as it's permitted, then you can have a reception center. In other words, you can have a bank, you can have an office, you can have any use that is permitted, and then you can have your reception center, as long as you comply with the other two. Well, the proposal is to eliminate A, B, and to modify C, so it reads like this. Reception centers shall only exist if they are subordinate in the same lot or parcel to a permitted or conditional use that generates sales tax. So it should not only accompany any permitted use, but it has to be a permitted or conditional use that provides for that revenue for the city. That's what the proposal is. We still keep it as a conditional use because reception centers are always tricky with parking. So we want to make sure that the parking is okay. And we'll keep it as a conditional use, and this will be the condition. So again, eliminates A, eliminates B, and kind of like clarifies C, and kind of like a trade-off. Now we require for a use to generate sales tax.
But what if they have a candy counter?
So based on that, what staff proposed was B as well. So staff say A and B, and it says reception center. Now let's kind of like figure out what does subordinate mean, okay? Reception center are limited to less than 50% of each individual site plan, either by square footage of the lot or by hours of operation designated for each use. That is what staff proposed, and Planning Commission thought that it was too restrictive. Okay, they thought it was too restrictive, and in their recommendation, they eliminated this. The question still comes and say, okay, how are we going to establish, or how are we going to know how much is going to be the retail sales tax?
Yeah, I mean, you could build a huge reception center and put a candy counter selling Snickers.
Correct. So
and abide by that code.
So, and I think someone from the Planning Commission, no, they said they were going to come here, but they didn't show up today. But, so that's why staff came out with letter B, correct? Now, the only thing that Planning Commission said, well, that is the reason, not the only thing, but one of the reasons why they eliminated is because it is still a conditional use. So at the time it goes to the Planning Commission gets to determine right there if it's enough or not. That's their way of thinking. The other situation, or the other way why they thought that, it was because, and hopefully I'm representing this correctly, is they thought Planning Commission doesn't think that the objective has been fully achieved. But they think that we have done a good job allowing for mixed use and bringing some commercial and retail uses that they want to allow for some flexibility, meaning that there are not a lot of places right now that they can be developed into a reception center. That was the other idea that they had in mind, okay? Now, based on what they were proposing, again, to eliminate that and only keep option A, they forwarded a unanimous recommendation of approval to eliminate B and only to approve A as it is proposed, or as is shown right now. That was the thought of the Planning Commission to a point. Okay.
Can I ask, so subordinate, I guess in my mind, means that it is not the main use.
Correct.
And so if that's how that's defined, we're probably okay by just, like the candy counter doesn't work now because the reception center is not subordinate to the candy counter.
That's pretty objective. That's pretty subjective, though.
Well, so that's my question is, if that's open for interpretation, then maybe B is needed to kind of tighten that up a little bit.
Yeah, subordinate is subordinate to what?
I tell you where we found that, and the way, because when we were drafted that, it was the similar language to what we have for accessory apartments. We have something similar. We say accessory apartment should be subordinate to the main house. And then it's up to the interpretation of the, at that time of the director when they come and they submit something to me. In this case, the Planning Commission thought that the subordinate, they can interpret that at the time of the conditional use application. Okay? So that's what I have.
Can I interject something here along with what
You
I
bet.
think Todd was going for? Legally, the word subordinate without defining it, is left up to interpretation. And so that could create some problems down the road if somebody didn't like the discretion exercised by either the planning commission or the community development director to decide what subordinate was. So I would prefer that we tighten it up a little bit more and either leave B in or come up with some additional language that would give some criteria for defining what subordinate is.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, thank you.
If we do item B, does the applicant still have the room to do their project?
And the applicant is here. I'm pretty sure she can answer more openly to that question. Again, what's in red was what proposed by the staff, and what it was left without being crossed out is what the planning commission forward as a recommendation.
I'd like to talk to applicant when we have a chance, see if she's okay.
For sure.
So if we put B in, I'm assuming you're the applicant.
Let's have her come up, unless you guys have any more questions for Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel, I just want to make sure that if.
Yeah, no, that's good.
If we add B, is
So far for the presentation, that's what I have, Mayor.
Okay.
If you want me to bring the applicant here and sit down.
Do we have any more, I mean, are there any more
I
questions?
don't
No, I
think
don't
we
think
do,
so.
unless you guys do.
No, I missed the page.
Thank you.
It was Eric.
Full disclosure, this is my neighbor. She's just 3 houses up from me.
How are you? It's
I'm
good.
good.
Good to
He
see
didn't
you.
say if he likes me or not, so that could go either way.
I'm surprised you
He's a
live in
great
the
family.
same neighborhood.
Yeah.
I'm Claire Moon, and I'm the applicant for this. What questions can I answer?
If we leave B in, right, we're not necessarily concerned about your specific property, but we want to make sure we write a code that's,
works for
after
everybody.
we're gone, it
Right.
works for everybody. So if we leave B in to kind of solidify that definition, does it still cover what you need?
Yes, it would still cover what I need. My goal is to have food trucks be in operation as much as possible. I just also want the flexibility for if it doesn't go to plan. I haven't put a lot of money into property and building that then I am unable to use. So having this really beautiful indoor open hall just lends itself really well to a venue. So if in like our Tuesdays are particularly slow at dinner time, I'd love to be able to have it open as a venue space. And I'd also like to be able to combine food trucks and rental. A lot of events now have food trucks be their caterers, and so
More and more. I'm actually surprised at how many. there
yes,
were.
mixing those two
Yeah.
together would work really well for my proposal. But lunchtime, I am expecting to be open every day for lunch because there are so many offices in that area that could use.
Me included. Good for
Yeah.
you. Congratulations.
So the event center is what is the bigger square footage space taker?
Well, it's one of the things Daniel was mentioning is it's really hard to determine that because I don't have the building divided into 2 different zones. So I have
One lot?
right, one lot with a 4,500 square foot building and then a plaza in front of it where the trucks will park. So if you say the building, when it's a venue, the majority of the building will be used for venue space. There's just bathrooms and a kitchen that wouldn't be. But when food trucks are there and no one's renting the indoor space, then that whole building would then be used for eating your meal. So I can't fulfill that great division of how much space is being used for that unless you include the whole
lot?
the whole lot, like plaza included, then you can start to say, well, yeah, that's about 50-50. But it again depends, like, is my grass included in that plaza area? It just gets really iffy on that. So we're hoping that if you need to have B in there, then the hours of operation is more what I would fall under.
Just to kind of clarify, we're not approving the project tonight.
No.
Just a code text.
This is just the text. And so some of these details, I don't think have been worked out just yet as far as some of the things that she needs to do in order to make sure this project.
But I also think
All the other parts of our code.
we also, though, need to come up with some kind of a measurement or some kind of a tool that we can use so that we can define for everyone in all of those zones,
So, sorry, that was loud.
a zone.
So that's why on B it says either by square footage of the lot, so it's not just by building, or by hours of operation. So we have either or, right? Either or. Now, let's keep in mind that right now, we haven't in mind this project, but this applies for the entire zone. So maybe here comes a different project that hours of operation don't work, but the square footage of the site plan does. Of the site plan, percentage doesn't work, but hours of operation do. So that's why we wrote both, so we have that chance to go for. It doesn't say and, it's or.
Did you ever talk about anything with a frontage on the artery street or like, did you ever talk about the positioning of where the event center was?
No.
Okay. Well, but I'm wondering if that's something, like if your event center, if your money-making is in the front, on the frontage, but your event center is behind.
I think that was the purpose of like item A initially, was we'll let you do this, but you need to be on the second floor instead of the bottom floor. So what you're saying is your sales tax use has to be on the frontage, and then your other use has to be on the back. But, I mean, that's something we can do that would accommodate this project per se.
But I'm thinking of even, what would have worked, because that even would have worked for Elevate is because the sales tax business is ground floor or closest to the street
In essence, you have to walk through that in order,
to get to your event
I mean,
center.
maybe, I don't remember how to exactly get to the top of Elevate, but I think the whole intent of what Daniel was going for here was, as a city, we want to protect the sales tax, because the good part of this is item A, B, or C doesn't contemplate sales tax. So with this change now, sales tax is contemplated, meaning if somebody's going to put a reception center in this zone, they need a sales tax generator, and what we're trying to protect is at least 50% of the use. Now, whether it's by square footage or whether it's by hours of operation, that there's that sales tax generation to make sure that the candy counter doesn't come in and somebody sets that up and then they do a 20,000 square foot reception center behind it. So I think this language is pretty solid as far as protecting us from having a huge reception center and not a sales tax generator. Yeah, because in some ways, to your point, Diana, I don't know if we want to necessarily say you have to configure it this way. In some ways, I think it'd just be good to give them the flexibility as long as item B is met at the end of the day. Then I don't know if we care if it's in front or behind or whatever.
So the revenue produced by an event center is just the property tax.
Yeah, well, so I don't know if they're doing catering on site or something, I'm assuming we get a sales, do we get
So
sales tax?
that
on-
question, so I was reading the minutes of the meeting in 2015, and it was determined that reception center by itself, even though with the catering and stuff like that, does not produce sales tax.
Okay, has anybody else got anything else for Claire?
Nope, I'm good. Good idea.
I think it's awesome.
We'll-
Thank
We'll
you.
let you have a seat,
Thanks.
so. Okay, any further discussion right now before we go to our public hearing?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, if not, council, we'll now open up our public hearing to consider for adoption ordinance 2019-16, amending City Code 10-14-24-1-C3, the Pleasant Grove Commercial Sales District conditional use permits by changing the conditions requirements for the establishment of use number 6399, reception centers within the Grove Zone. So anyone who would like to come forward and address the council this time, or please welcome to do so.
Any future.
I don't see a great rush to the podium, so we will now declare the public hearing closed and bring it back up here to the council for further discussion and a motion.
Emotion?
Emotion, a motion.
I make the motion that we,
Just before you do, or is there any,
So
we good with,
I think we were going to add in B.
Just add B back in
Yeah.
as part of the motion.
It's up to the council. It's up to the council. My comment simply was, if we just leave A, it could lead to some problems with interpretation down the road. So you have
They're
the.
just asking what the language is in
Yeah.
order to include B. and
Right.
They just need to include B.
So the motion would be approving the ordinance amendment, including subsection A and B in the final language.
okay?
I make the motion that we adopt ordinance 2019-16, and with that include B in the city code 6399 as read by Attorney Peterson, and that we amend city code section 10-14-24-1-C3, the Grove Commercial Sales Subdistrict, conditional uses by changing the conditions and requirements for the establishment of use number 6399 reception centers within the Grove zone.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Lamone, a second by Councilmember Jensen. This will be a roll call vote, starting with Councilmember Anderson.
One question, quick. Is this now A and B?
Yes.
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 Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone.
Yes.
Councilmember Walker.
Yes.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move on because we've eliminated 9B. We'll go to our action items this evening. And 10A, to consider for adoption Resolution 2019-038, authorizing the mayor to enter into a lease purchase agreement with CMFU 2 Incorporated, Salt Lake City, Utah, for the purpose of acquiring public safety vehicles, computers, fitness equipment, and authorizing for the execution and delivery thereof, and providing for effective date. General Counsel.
Mayor and council, I'm substituting tonight for Denise. She's not here, and so I'm presenting this item to you. This is the lease agreement that we sign every year to rotate certain equipment and to purchase and rotate out certain leased vehicles. The equipment list is on Exhibit B of the lease. I can go through those if you'd like. The total amount of the lease is $405,695. It is money that has been allocated in the budget, so this was something that was planned. It is not outside the budget documents. It is, the name of the entity is a little confusing, but basically it's Zions Bank. It's just a different, one of their different business entities, but it's Zions Bank. Do you have any questions at all? If you'd like me to read the list of items, I can, but basically it's police vehicles and equipment for the rec center, including elliptical machines and different training machines, and then various computer equipment along with licenses and software.
I think you had it all in your notes, if you looked at that previously. You okay with where we're at? Any other questions for council?
One other item, we're expected to close on the 15th of August after this is approved by the council.
Okay, with that, if there isn't any other further questions or debate on this item, I'd ask for a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion for the adoption of Resolution 2019-38, authorizing the mayor to enter into a lease purchase agreement with ZMFU 2 Incorporated, Salt Lake City, Utah, for the purpose of acquiring public safety vehicles, computers, and fitness equipment, and authorizing the execution and delivery thereof, and providing for an effective date.
Second. We have a motion by Councilmember Jensen, second by Councilmember Walker. This be a roll call vote. pay attention now. We're going to go the other direction. Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Councilmember Walker.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. We'll now move on to our next item, which was supposed to be 10B, but that has been continued. We'll now move to 10C, to consider for approval three-lot final subdivision plat called Grove Commons Subdivision Plat C on property located approximately 1809 West State Road in in the Grove Zone Commercial Cells and Mixed Housing Subdistrict. And we'll turn back to Director Cardenas.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Council. This is a subdivision plat, Grove Commons. Let's start with the map. It's what the area that we're going to be subdividing, what the applicant is proposing to subdivide, is the area within this thick blue line, 3.8 acres. For better reference, Freaky Fast Sandwiches, Sweetopia, Domino's. We know exactly where we are, right? So what the applicant is proposing is used to be one big lot. So what the applicant is proposing is to go with a 3-lot subdivision, okay? I think the applicants did a great job trying to get access to the lots in the back, to right here, to these 3 lots. So every single lot has access and frontage to a State Street. So it's a 3-lot subdivision, and the reason why you guys are looking at this and we are requesting for your approval is because it is located in the Cells Subdistrict, a tiny little bit right here on the mixed housing, but it's in the Cells, most of it's in the Cells Subdistrict. So again, it's a 3-lot subdivision. Engineering has reviewed it, given their approval. We also received a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission, and now we have the Grove Commons Subdivision Plat C, a new plat. That's what I have, Mayor, Council.
Any questions for Daniel?
Is the applicant here?
Yes, ma'am.
If not, I'd ask for a motion.
Can we ask the purpose of the subdivision?
Yes, please come forward.
My name is Logan Johnson with Wright Development Group. We've been here a couple times with you guys on this property. We think we found a solution that's going to work. In order for us to do that, we have to subdivide so we can sell it off in a couple pieces. There was an ordinance requirement that each lot has to have frontage. That's why we have those legs going up, and there's a cross-access easement that kind of grants them all access over that area. We're excited. We have something we think can help push a couple of these lots forward. So,
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I would make the motion to approve the 3-lot final subdivision plat called Grove Commons Subdivision Plat C on property located at approximately 1809 West State Street in the Grove Zone Commercial Sales and Mixed Housing Subdistrict.
Have a motion by Council Member Walker. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second by Council Member Jensen. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll now move on to item 10D, consider for adoption Resolution 2019-039, supporting Utah County Good Governance Advisory Board's 6 recommendations, and specifically the recommendations to place a change of form of government questioned on the November 2019 ballot, and providing for an effective date. City Administrator Derek.
So let me give you a little history. Right now with Utah County, so the form of government there is a 3-member commission. There has been discussion about changing that to a different form of government, to which the 3 commissioners a few months ago said that they would be willing to entertain that after they have a committee study what that looks like. So they created the Utah County Good Governance Advisory Board, which was a group of citizens. So they had a couple elected officials. They had a couple administrative professionals, city administrator professional types. They had a couple professors. It was chaired by one of the vice presidents at UVU.
Cameron Martin.
Yeah, so they had a group that came together and they met a few times. And what they did is they made a recommendation, well, they made 6 recommendations back to Utah County. So I'll read what those recommendations are and then kind of what's happened since they made those recommendations. So recommendation number 1 is that this advisory board supported changing the form of government from a 3-member county commission form to a county executive council, mayor council form of government, which means it would have a full-time elected mayor and then 7 county council members, with 5 of those seats being divided by districts. So instead of a 3-member commission, then you would have a county council, so essentially a full-time mayor and then 7 county council members. They also recommended that they pass an ordinance to hire a professionally trained and skilled chief administrative officer, or CAO, to aid in the day-to-day management. So in essence, they would have their elected governing body, and then they were recommending that they would have a chief administrator, similar to a city administrator, to help advise them. Number 3 was that they would move expeditiously to hold a special election in November of 2019 to seek voter approval for this form of government. Item 4 was to establish a nonpartisan committee to establish federal and state judicial criteria and recommend the geographic boundaries for the 5 district seats of the county council. So if they're going to have the district seats for these county council members, they have to decide what those boundaries are. And that's a process there. With public engagement in this process, guards against perceptions of self-serving decisions made by county officials. They just want to make sure that this was a public-driven process as they draw the boundaries of the county council seats. Number 5 was to establish a compensation committee comprised of volunteers with expertise in cost analysis and compensation, and also have the public engagement in this process. So to figure out what's the mayor going to be paid, what are the council members going to be paid, what is the CEO going to be paid. They would create a group that would look at that. Recommendation number 6 was to educate Utah County voters on the mayor council form of government and how it holds elected officials accountable, improves representation of all areas and communities within the county, and how the transition will be funded. So these 6 recommendations were passed on to the county commission. There were some things that happened that kind of put the county commission had to kind of take a step back and decide whether they legally could put this on the ballot or not for contemplation in November of 2019. In the meantime, a few communities have said, we really like these recommendations and we would like to pass a resolution to say we support these recommendations from this advisory board. So Provo's done it, Cedar Hills has done it. I know there's a few other communities, just like Pleasant Grove is currently contemplating that. So the idea is that if we were to adopt this resolution, we would forward it on to the county commission and let them know that Pleasant Grove City supports the 6 recommendations made by the advisory board. The current status as to whether this is going to be on the ballot in 2019, I don't know. That's probably in a legal situation at this point. But if it's something that the city council feels that they want their county commissioners to know how you feel about it, this would be the way that we would do that. Is there any questions?
No.
Anything for Scott?
Well, and Mayor, and I think MAG also got together. I think the mayors voiced their support for this committee and moving forward. And I know the commissioners at the time, when they formed it, unanimously formed the committee and were gracious for their support in moving forward. And so I'd like to publicly say thank you to that committee and the work that they've done on behalf of all the residents of Utah County and the work that was produced. And thankful to Commissioner Ivey for stepping back with his initiative, gathering signatures and letting that process happen and letting it to have opportunity to go to the residents for a vote. But again, I know of Orm's passing theirs tonight and a few others also tonight are doing the same thing, so.
If I remember correctly, Tina, don't you have to have your verbiage in to be on a ballot by like August 24th, something like that? So I think that was the haste in which we were wanting to throw our support vocally was because we knew that the time was moving very quickly.
And there is an opportunity for that to still happen.
Well, I don't, I thought, maybe I'm wrong. I thought they
That's-
already voted to put it on the ballot. But whether that's going to uphold legal muster, I think is what's in question.
That's what we're waiting on,
And-
yeah.
And that, I think that's why we're voicing our support.
Any other questions? If not, ask for a motion on resolution number 2019-039.
Okay.
You want to, Eric?
Go for it, Eric.
Fine. Mayor, I make a motion for adoption of Resolution 2019-39, supporting the Utah County Good Governance Advisory Board, 6 recommendations, and specifically the recommendation to place a change of form of government question on November 2019 ballot and providing for an effective date.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Jensen. We have a second by Councilmember Anderson. This is a roll call vote. Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone,
Yes.
Councilmember Walker,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams.
A resounding yes.
Yes, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Now, we will now move on to, that finishes our action items for this evening, and we'll now move to our items to discuss, and we'll ask Sherry to share anything you have for us on the library.
Well, I don't have any numbers yet for total summer reading, but we did have it's stuck.
Well, this part moves too.
We did have 32,000 checkouts in July. So, we do keep busy
In
moving those
July.
books.
In one
July.
month, July. How does that compare to year over year?
Well, last year was 29,000, so
Nice. Very good.
a little better. Also,
12%? That's pretty good.
kind of fun. We've had an adult summer reading program with kind of limited interest, but this year we had 208 people turn in the completed
Wow.
packet and for prizes. And they had to do a series of things to get it done. And most of them did it because their kids were doing it and they were goaded into completing it with their kids. But that's fun. Also, Harry Potter is coming up, and I've mentioned before we would love to have any city council and anybody else who would like to come, and mayor, who would like to come and help. Whether that's just walking around being the Council of Hogsmeade or, something else, or just helping with the craft or whatever it is. We would love your help. We need as many volunteers as we can get. That is, sorry, I should have had that up.
That's almost a pre-Halloween thing.
Yeah. The 28th of September. That's a Saturday. So we'll be running it from about 3 to 9 is what it ends up kind of going. So, well, yeah, let us know what you're available for and we'll plug you in if you can do that.
Eric said he'll be Voldemort.
Okay, fine.
That-
Tom said he'll be Harry Potter.
That would be
There's a
great.
tryout for that.
And last year was so crowded, we're trying different things for crowd control, because it was kind of claustrophobic, it was so crowded. But last 2 years, we've ended up with about 800 to 1,000 people. And
Oh
so,
my gosh.
so lest we get in trouble for violating, yeah.
Crowd control.
He plugged his ears. Yeah, so we're trying to work with that, but without kicking people out. Other years, we haven't required library cards, and this year we probably will. That'll help a little bit.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, and thank you to the swimming pool for helping us with our end of summer reading party. We had a lot of people there, and they're very helpful. That's appreciated.
Director.
So, Mayor, this week is our annual cleaning and maintenance. We're closing for the next 3 days to do a deep clean and maintenance of the facility. And during that time, American Fork and Lehigh Rec Centers are going to accept our pass holders while we get that done. And so we're going to get a lot of work done up there and clean that place and have it looking good for the public when they come back.
Good.
Thank you to those rec centers for doing that for us.
Yeah.
Do we do that for them?
Yeah, American Fork usually closes when their bubble needs to go down at the end of September, and so they take a whole week doing
What about
that.
Orem? When do they close?
Orem's actually closing for 2 years, so we usually
Oh,
work
that's
with them
right.
because they're building their facility.
So thank you for getting the work done in 3 days because we used to close for a week to 2 weeks.
A week.
A week. It felt like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I was saying.
That's what a lot
So-
of residents told us, so, yeah.
What is Orem going to do while they're closed?
They actually have moved all of their fitness equipment and stuff to the senior center, and they've lowered all their pass prices for their residents to come and still use the facility there. And yeah, they're just gonna, as far as the swimming pool, the indoor swimming pool, the teams and things that utilize that facility through high schools are gonna go to Provo Rec Center. They've
Okay.
so just awesome cities working together to
Yeah.
figure out
Love
things, and so it's really good.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've lost Dion, so let's, Chief Thomas.
So we're in the process of hiring 3 new full-time firefighters. We're very close to that. We hope to get that taken care of in the next little while.
Did people leave?
Yes, we lost 3. I lost the last one this morning. Actually, I knew it was
Who?
coming, but I lost the 3rd person this morning.
Can you say who the 3 are? Can you say who the 3 are?
Oh, sure. Who the 3 are that we're going to
The-
hire, or the 3 that we lost?
The 3 that are leaving.
Okay, so Brian Patton left.
Yeah.
He was the battalion chief, fire marshal. And we lost Kevin Davis, and we lost this morning. We lost Hunter Morgan. They both headed for Salt Lake departments, so chasing the money. So we've got 3 online that we should be able to pick up and fill that in. We'll have to do some training with them, but I think we'll be okay with that. We hired, we hired Chase Gusman as the new battalion chief / fire marshal. Promoted him, so that means we'll be promoting a captain, and that in turn will lead
Okay.
to the promotion of a lieutenant, because kind of everybody switches up.
Gotcha.
And then last but not least, and super exciting, is we're also going to interview tomorrow for a administrative assistant. So that's really good. Think
That's
of those
good.
emails coming out of our office now with correct spelling and punctuation and stuff like that. It's going to be awesome.
That'd be great.
Cool. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, Chief?
Captain?
Chief?
Yeah.
Sorry, next time you have your fire challenge, I think you should challenge all the council to come do it. Is that okay?
You mean the test like we gave to the recruits?
Uh-huh, yeah. See if we can
I
pass
think
muster.
it'd just be so simple for y'all, it wouldn't be even
Oh,
entertaining.
I agree.
I nearly died one year.
Just saying.
So we'll put some together and invite you over.
I've never, what is it called, anaerobic? No, when you have no oxygen in your whole,
That's called death.
yeah.
That's just
that-
flatlining
I
at that
was-
point.
I was that close.
Captain Smith, and thank you for stepping out with
Yeah,
our
thank
concerned
you.
citizen. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be following up
Okay.
with him after I have a chance to read through that report and figure out what we did. So,
Thank you.
but I'll follow up with you guys when I have
Okay.
done so.
Thank
so
you.
that, you guys have some feedback there. I'm assuming everybody follows our police department Facebook page, but about a month ago we posted on there. We had some doorbell camera footage of a guy sneaking through a truck.
Yeah.
Sneaking through a truck?
Well, he was stealing stuff out of a vehicle.
Okay.
And we've had several of those reports. Happy to report that we were able to identify that individual and tracked him down to a home. We were able to secure a search warrant for that home
Here in Pleasant Grove?
here in Pleasant Grove. The SWAT team helped us serve that warrant, and we ended up arresting 8 individuals and taking them to Utah County Jail, seizing lots of narcotics and illegal contraband,
Oh my
as well
gosh.
as an incredible amount of stolen property, and solved cases all the way back to Spanish Fork. So
Nice
Oh my
work.
heck.
that happened
Very
last
nice
week.
work.
So was he identified through the camera doorbell?
Yes.
So that,
I'll need one.
I have
He's
one.
in
That's
jail.
awesome. Oh my
Captain,
heck.
that probably was quite a bit of a long duration of a sting, shall we call, right?
Yeah, it took us a little bit to get the probable cause to get into the door. And Interestingly enough, it was one of our newer patrolmen that wrote the search warrant. So kudos to him, being very proactive and showing a lot of promise.
So do you think, I'm gonna go back to the doorbell for a minute. Was it you posted, people saw the footage and identified him from?
We got
Facebook
lots of
page?
tips, but ultimately the identification came through our patrol division. They just because they got to have a finger on the pulse in the community, they saw him and they
knew
he was on a short list, so they just put their nose to the ground until they had enough to kind of
That's
prove
awesome.
it.
You know, I sent a text to Chief on the 10th of July, and saying that we'd had some problems, at least down in my neighborhood, and he said he was on it, and you guys did it, and nice work. Very, very, very nice work. Eight people were arrested.
Yep, 8 people. So
Great.
we're happy to report that. And then today, our brand new canine, Django, who is currently in narcotics training, getting certified to detect drugs for us, had a little bit of an accident. Actually had a near-death experience. So he tried to swallow one of his balls, and it got stuck in his throat. Fortunately for him, the ball had a hole in it, and it was positioned so that it was down his airway, so he was able to breathe while they rushed him, lights and sirens, to an animal hospital and sedated him and retrieved the ball. So if the ball had not had a hole in it, it would be a far different story today. So those crazy dogs.
Wow.
So anyway, that's all I had.
I just about those doorbell cams, and I read so many newspapers this weekend. I read the Knoxville Times or whatever, and I think it was in there that they were a big issue with those, saying that people are saying, well, that's an invasion of privacy. All the footage they're getting off the people, and I
you
said,
mean the
hey, bring
criminals
it
were
on.
saying that?
Yeah, I mean they're against that's.
The criminals?
Yes.
Are saying
I don't know who it is, but anyway.
I think everybody
interesting.
should have one. I think everybody
Yeah,
should have
everybody
3.
should have one, that's right.
Well, but does it it does pan off your property?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
that's
It can.
probably
Out to the
that-
street,
out
that's
to
what
the
I think.
Uh-huh.
To a public street where you have no expectation of privacy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought,
Invasion? No, okay.
okay. Kyler,
It's crazy.
anything else, Scott?
I just wanted to express appreciation for those yesterday that helped put all this together. So Kathy was the one that took care of all the food.
So basically Kathy. Thanks, Kathy.
Thanks for cooking, Kathy.
The thing is, you go to something like that, and we go and we eat and we swim, but we don't necessarily realize all the people behind the scenes that are putting it all together so we can just show up and do our thing. But appreciate the council for helping serve, Parks Department for helping bring in the tables and things and helping get set up there. And then the pool staff for providing that service. The pool looked great last night. I mean, the water's warm. It's got to be warm for my standards, and it was that way. Nice and clean too, and it was just a great night. It was just good to be with the city employees and being together in that manner. But I just was happy with how everything flowed, and that's a credit to some of the people in this room for making sure that happened. That's all I have.
Okay. Tina, do you have anything else for us? Marty?
Yeah, big shout out to the Parks Department. Last week we had with all of the runoff that we have at Battle Creek, we about lost our spring line coming down there. It was fully exposed where it had eroded down the trail, and it exposed our pipe for about 30 or 40 feet. So we mobilized on Wednesday morning with about 27 people of Public Works and Parks, went up there with chainsaws and pickaxes and rock bars, and diverted the stream channel back into its original channel, which it had kind of overrun its channel there, and then filled all that area back in and reestablished that for our pipe. So, but the Parks Department was huge in helping us with about half the guys they sent up, and it was really helpful to have everybody there all at once, because in about 4 hours we had everything put back together. So we've had a lot of flow coming out of Battle Creek this year. ton of sediments coming out of there. And it's looking like it's stabilizing now. A lot of that's cut through what it's going to do. All of the projects are moving forward well. Battle Creek Springs, they're getting finished with the first big spring. They've kind of dug down to that, and good report today at our progress meeting was whatever the Fugels did or whoever did that back in 70, I think it was 40 or 50 years ago, I believe they did that original spring development. John said when they took the top off the spring, because they cap it with a clay cap to make sure no material from the top can come down into the spring, he said it looked just as pristine probably as they did the day they left it. Everything was good, which is a good sign for us, but they also found a few other springs that they could capture in this process, and so they're going to be able to dig and find a few more springs and bring a little bit more water down the canyon. And so very hopeful, everything's looking good on that project and moving forward. We're just very careful about fire danger and other things of that nature with the crews up there and working with the Forest Service on that. 300 and 380 East should be paved here this week. Above 1100 North, 300 East is, we're just finishing up with all of the water line, storm drain line, and that should be in the next month will be paved. 1100 North should be paved by the end of next week up to 380 East, so that the section there by Growcrest Elementary, all of that right now will be under heavy construction for the next week and a half, and it'll be put back together before school starts. So that's moving forward. You may have noticed a bunch of sewer bypass lines on State Street. If you go down by 220 South and State, between Center and 220 South, there's a big pipe on the side of the road. They're bypassing all the sewer out of the line, out of our main line. They'll pump it all the way down the road, and then they'll pull in and burst our existing pipe up to, I believe it's an 18-inch pipe. It's going from a 14 to an 18. And so that process has started, and so you're going to see some some minor traffic delays there potentially during rush hour, because they are narrowing those lanes down to be able to accommodate that construction period. So lots of other things in the works.
Was that Condi Construction?
Yes, that's Condi Construction on that one. First East, what we're being told is that it should have the micro surface down this week. Striping will happen by the end of next week, so we should have all the crosswalks in, all of the striping on the road for the permanent location of those lines should be in by next week. They'll come back and have to restripe that after the striping is set. They got to wait for the pavement, and that actually it's the micro surface that has to set before they can put on the final stripe that's a permanent stripe. So
Marty, so if citizens don't get their sidewalk or the curb, whatever finished, can they contact you first, or do you want to go straight to the county?
still go to the county on that.
But are they being responsive? Because there's been some residents that have contacted and haven't received a response. In fact, Lisa Flinders from our social media contacted because she was getting questions and she didn't get a call back from the county or Kilgore. If that's the case, should we go to you at that point, or what?
They can, yes, but I'm going to be gone for the next 10 days, so it may not do too well. They are supposed to be finished in the next 2 weeks, but they're welcome to call me. I can leave some information with our engineering department to call Glenn. We have our weekly meeting still every Thursday that we could pass information through. They do review every call that comes in at those meetings still and talk about every resident that has issues. And so I know that there are some residents that don't feel maybe that they're getting back what they had before, things of that nature. All of those things need to be worked through the county as far as what they're willing to do to make them as whole as possible first, before we would ever, I guess, think to interject, I guess, and get involved in that discussion. From my experience, they are trying to get this project finished with Kilgore, and I know that the county may still be willing to come back and get some things done, but that'll be a negotiation with them, and not, I don't know how far we get involved with their project and how much we get done. So I guess if they're still having problems, they can contact me and we can try to work things through our end. But at the same time, a lot of times we've already talked about a lot of these, and they've already made a determination on what they're willing to do.
I'm just wondering if the resident knows what the determination is, because they're kind of left wondering in the dark about what's going to happen and when, and so they just don't know. There's been a lot of communication with the residents, like driveways, things like that up by 2600 North, and so I guess we just need someone to follow up with them and make sure that everyone's on the same page as to what's going to happen, because we might be working with them and know what's going on, but the resident doesn't.
Yeah, and I honestly haven't been involved in their day-to-day communication with all of the residents along there. We're just making sure the final product is finished for the most part. So if you want to have them send me an email, I can try to direct it that way.
Okay.
That's probably the best way to handle it, Sid,
Okay,
and see if we
thank
can
you.
handle it that way.
Marty, we've had a couple of questions, and I brought this up to you, I think, earlier this week, but the possibility of a bike lane along First East before they stripe. They just kind of feel like First East is a really good corridor up to Valley Vista Trails, as well as, what's that?
Mouth of Canyon.
Mouth of the Canyon, as well as the
Help us out here.
trail, the
Not
Murdoch Canal, yeah. So a lot of people come up first to try to get to, those places. They really would like the possibility of if before they stripe it, could they stripe for a bike lane? If you just follow up with the county just to see if that's a possibility, so I can get back to the residents.
Sure. I've actually need to review the striping plan. We've already reviewed it once. The striping plan does not currently accommodate a bike lane that would have to prohibit all parking. So it's not that there's not enough room.
Right.
In fact, for the most part, it's 3 lanes now all the way to 2600 North, narrows down just past 2600 North to back to 2 lanes with about a 4-foot shoulder beyond that. So it's going to be much, much better than it was north of 2600 North. But south of that, it should be 3 lanes with a reasonable shoulder. When you come down where you've got residents that live along that, a lot of times, for example, right just north of the junior high, there's enough room there. It's narrow, but we sometimes get residents that are parking on that. So if we were going to not allow parking there, then I would say that a bike lane would be possible. But if parking is allowed, then there would not be enough room for the bike lane. So I think that's a discussion that we can have in the future to some degree, because they're going to still have to, they're striping the actual required lanes, which is a center lane and 2 through lanes, both north and southbound, right?
But also a right-hand
So,
line, right?
so they will stripe the outside lanes
lane, yeah.
for the travel lanes. But out from there, a bike lane typically is from that point out to the curb. So if they wanted to just stripe it or post it as no parking, it automatically would become a bike lane, right? Because you don't necessarily have to.
Right,
I mean,
right.
it's not a separated bike lane,
Right.
but it is a potential bike lane there. So I think that's a discussion that we could have with the county if we're willing to agree. And again, we've tried to do that on 1100 North and say, hey, let's make 1100 North with bike lanes, right? But it does, some of those residents that have frontage there have a difficult time parking on their properties. And so that's where you get in the catch-22 there. What I would say, for the most part, you're going to see that open most of the way up this right-of-way, because there's not a lot of people that park on it north of 1100 North. It's just not convenient to do that. And it's side yards and things of that nature. So. But at the same time, we can talk with the county about whether or not they want to post that as a bike lane or no parking, which would allow the bike lane. But I wouldn't recommend that we get rid of the center median and have just 2 lanes north and southbound, because you need that full width, and they're not planning to move the curb and gutter any further to allow parking and a bike lane. So,
Okay, so just have the conversation.
yeah, I'm happy to do that and talk with them about it.
Okay, so I have one quick one for you on that, on 100 East. When all is said and done, when they're finished, that's when we have I won't call it a walkthrough, maybe a drive-through, but when we sign the final docs. Is that correct or not? Or we already signed?
No, so we have a contract with them that we take that road in 30 years.
Correct, but I thought it was when they hand it over, it has to be in a certain condition, right?
Yeah, in 30 years.
In 30
So in
years.
30 years, we do the walkthrough before we take the road, that they have to meet certain conditions.
I just want to make sure that when they're finally done, that there's some kind of accountability that we can go through and say, this isn't quite.
Well, it's still their road.
Well,
Eric, my recollection of the agreement was it was 30 years from the time of the reconstruction, right? When they completed this phase, everything's completed, and then that starts our 30-year clock to where we would actually obtain ownership of that.
Correct.
And we required in that agreement that they do certain improvements, which they have done, which is they widen it, that they get the curb and gutters where we've agreed to, they do the full depth reconstruction up to, essentially up to the canal, and they have done all of that. And so I think they've met every term of that agreement. When they get finished with this phase, all of those terms will have been met to where that would start that clock.
We're just saying, well, at least I think what you're saying is when they complete the project, there's not stripe lines going into oncoming traffic. There's not potholes a month after. There's completed sidewalks and driveways. So the clock doesn't start and they've moved on and we are left with a road that's not in good condition.
They're required,
It's not our
Well,
road.
I know, but
they're required when they turn it over in 30 years, it has to meet a
but
certain
they could have
standard.
stripe lines going into oncoming
They
traffic.
could have potholes from now until 30
They
years.
won't have those
That
things.
doesn't make sense. I mean,
I've
it's their
reviewed the
road, but
striping
it's in our
plan.
city and it's our residents.
I've
So
reviewed the striping plan. It's gonna be just fine. We won't have all of the, everything that was there was all temporary and quick, right? And just to get through the winter. And yes, they messed up on a few of the stripe lanes, but they didn't go back and fix them because they knew they were temporary. They've redone the striping plan and it's been laid out by an engineer. Everything's been surveyed in this time before they went out there with tabs and took a measuring tape and laid it out the best they could. But it's all being surveyed in now by the engineering company that designed the striping plan. So it's going, I'm not worried about the striping plan per se. Getting finished with the project where there are driveways that are missing, things of that nature, all of that stuff will be taken care of.
because
So-
I understand we don't own the road right now, but it is running through our city. It's our residents and we should be able to express concern and get things
Absolutely.
fixed if needed.
Yep, my concern is
talk
I
to
don't
them.
want residents thinking that we control that.
No, and they know that because we've been really clear over the past 2 years about what's
Okay,
going on.
I just, if we start taking ownership and fixing problems on that road before it's ours,
No,
that's what's, I start getting
That's not
heartburn
what I was
there.
meaning,
That's
no.
what's.
but we should let residents know we're going to help solve the problem if there's an issue. And if we need to go to the county or, if Marty needs to go or we need to express concern, I just don't think we say in 30 years, oh, let's hope it's good. We need to, along the way, work out the issues and whatever it is. I don't think we just wash our hands and say.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the message is they go to the county first and not us.
Right.
And if they're struggling with the county, then they can come back to us. But I just don't want Marty to have to spend his time with issues on that road when we don't control it. I would prefer they go to the county first.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We just need to
That's-
contact the county.
That's just where I'm at, so.
And we need them to answer and respond to calls, because that's been the issue, is that these homes up there who've dealt with 1.5 years of construction, they can't get through to anyone. And I understand the frustration, because this is like a driveway they go in and out of possibly, 5 times, 5, 6 times a day.
Sure.
And so that's fine. I don't mind referring them to the county if they're gonna get a response at some point. I don't expect immediately, but a week, a few days. So I think we just need to stay in communication with them. I just don't want it to be, they're done, we'll see you in 30 years, and there's no accountability, and there's nothing we can say about a main thoroughfare of traffic running through our city.
No, and honestly, and I understand the frustration because I hear it all the time, right? This isn't just from you. I hear it from the other side, and all the residents are still calling and talking and saying that. But at the same time, I think that the things that are unfinished right now, there's unfinished driveways, there's unfinished things. All of those things are intended to still be finished with the project. So it may be a delay of the next couple of weeks, but I think they're going to try to come to terms with everybody and everything that's unfinished at this time, from what I understand.
Okay.
So if they aren't getting a response in the next week, have them email me. Like I said, I'm happy to pass the information on. I have direct contact information with everybody there and good communication lines with them. So we can try to get things addressed before Kilgore is down the road on another project, so.
Okay, all right, that'd be
Any
great.
update on the
Thank
tree?
you.
Other than we have had further communications about doing it in the spring, and everybody's on board for moving towards that end, I guess, of that happening in the spring,
Great, thank you.
so.
See, it's just like State Street. We have nothing to do with State Street. That's state road. And
Yeah.
so, for the next 30 years,
And that
Thanks, State and
contract
County.
was pretty darn good. I think we hashed that
they'll,
contract
they'll,
out.
they'll get it out of Kilgore. So anyway, they'll take care of it. And if not, they'll take care of things. And Todd, just, you talked about bike lanes. I'd hate to see us start posting along First East because like on State Street, the state's got a bike lane all along State Street with no parking. but nobody pays any attention to the no parking signs, especially in front of Taco Amigo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've parked there before.
Yeah, I have too. So anyway, well, hey, that might be some revenue there, so anyway.
I didn't know we had to disclose everything.
Oh, and so you too. Okay.
I don't have anything else.
Good. Anything else said? Okay. So, anyway, Daniel, you got anything else for us on the iceberg?
With the bike lane in front of it?
Well, first of all, let me thank you guys for the activity yesterday. So officially, my daughter is 12 years old, and she told me it's after her birthday, it's her favorite day, is activity. She likes to come and do the food, the swimming pool, have to yank them out of the pool. It was a great activity. So, and the rest of the staff really appreciate that too. The food was amazing. Thank you, Kathy. Everything was done amazing. We really appreciate that. So I had my bi-monthly meeting. It's not an official meeting, but I have my bi-monthly meeting with Evermore. So they are looking forward to this season to open. You know, the fall is the best season for them. They're doing something that they're working forward on their project. If you guys remember the barn, the north part of the barn is almost ready to open now. It was going to be a restaurant, but they flipped the restaurant there now to the south part, and then the north part is going to be where they're going to sell T-shirts and crowns or whatever. Like they're almost ready. They're ready for their final inspections. They're working. They finished the landscape all over on the place where already is open, and they're trying to get a couple new buildings, small buildings, but they're working forward on them. So there's this project, the food truck, that is going to go on Planning Commission on Thursday, the food truck park. I'm so excited about this project. We've been working on this for months, and it's coming to an end. It's going to come in front of you guys pretty soon. This project, I always think about Soho, but it's more comparable to the Hub, the one in South Jordan, because you have the building. But I don't want to compare ourselves, but I think ours is better. So he has plenty of parking. I think it's a good project, and it's coming. And it's like bringing a restaurant here to the city. So it's a good concept. So it looks like the developments now are moving from the boulevard now to North County Boulevard. So the focus there from developers is getting a little bit more over there. It's been getting a lot of questions about those properties right there along the North County Boulevard. We're almost done with everything on PG Boulevard. We're almost full right there. So, and finally, the rap sheet. It's updated after the Planning Commission. So we'll update it, and we'll send you an email with it, and will be updated after this Thursday. This Planning Commission is going to be on Thursday, and Friday you guys will get the email with the new one, and it will be posted. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Daniel, what about the void?
Oh, yeah. So in the discussion, we talked with the void about the void. The void, the V's and my B's, I was getting confused with those two. The void, from the perception of the staff, is ready to be open. You guys remember when we did the field trip? So the two wings on the side, they need some work. But when I talked to the applicant, I told him, you can just block that, and the front counter could be, they can receive not a temporary certificate of occupancy, but kind of like a partial one, where they can use the front counter and then use the race car. And I think they're finally getting that in their heads. And I don't have exact date, but they're really working forward. They really want to open the wing on the left. In my personal opinion, they're ready to open right now, but the owners really want to finish the virtual.
On the left was the virtual reality.
Correct. And that's what they want to finish a little bit more before they open. But if they could open tomorrow, they could. We'll give them the permit.
I want us to be careful about talking about a business specific, getting too specific. I think if you want to follow up with Daniel outside of the public
But
meeting.
did you get to see Kanye?
Me and Kenya, we go way back. No, I was out of town, unfortunately. I was out of town. But yeah, that's what we have.
Marty.
Can I add one more thing in that area, because I think you'll be interested. So I've got a meeting tomorrow morning with UDOT regarding the interchange, the intersection at North County and PG Boulevard. Got a report back about a week and a half ago that they have made it more of a priority project. So it looks like I'm meeting with the project team in the morning to discuss what the scope of the project would be so that they can move forward into concept designs and things of that nature. So just know it isn't forgot from our end. I think we've put a little bug in their ear that that's an important project to get done. I've mentioned it many, many times to the project manager there, and it looks like it will be a priority project for them, and hopefully everything, the funding works to where it can be constructed next summer. So.
The off ramp,
So the widening's already being done,
okay?
and the rest of it is to widen the rest of the boulevard. We've already kind of talked about this concept before, but they're widening the intersection to get to the interchange. So they'll create a dedicated right-hand turn, for example, for the on-ramp northbound, and then all of those lane configurations will be widened to hopefully help with all that congestion that's happening down there. So just want you to know that we are progressing with discussions on that. I don't know that the final funding has been allocated because I don't think they know the scope of the project and what they're doing yet, but it is one of their priority projects that they brought up to me. So just thought you might be interested in that.
I think some of this pressure is coming from Commissioner Evans, so we can thank him for.
Yeah, that would be great to have some movement on
I've
that.
leaned on him a little bit on that, so and he knows what it's like there, so.
Leaning.
Yeah.
Lean in.
Okay, Sid, would you have anything for the council? Council Member Jensen.
Nope, I'm good.
I want to say something. Last night was really fun. Most residents don't understand that, well, first of all, that this is our corporation and that these are our employees. And a lot of them don't know what our employees do. So the fact that we had up the canyon, how many did you say? 40 guys? Oh, 27.
That's still a lot of people.
That's still a lot of people up a canyon trying to reroute a water stream, which was flowing with a lot of water, by the way. And just the day-to-day things that our employees do. I love that our corporation has a night where we can just, as families, enjoy each other's company. It's a very nice, it's such a nice feeling just to love the employees and to be grateful for them for just a minute. And I hope that it does a lot. I hope they feel that from us, that I hope they feel our gratitude for what they do on a day-to-day thing. Anyway, I left last night feeling very grateful for the guys that work for us and the women. When I say guys, I mean everything.
Okay, thank you. Lynn?
We're good.
Kathy, do you have anything for us? I do. Oh, that's a show. Oh, we should have started down on that end.
Just a reminder that next Tuesday,
Ballots.
13th, is the primary election. If you haven't turned your ballots in, please do so. Mail, bring them to City Hall, do the drop box, just drive up and drop them in. There will be an election day center here for those that want to come and drop it off here. I voted sticker. And also on the calendar, I know you're going to get to that, but on the 27th, I think it is, of August, we need to have a special meeting to do the canvas of the election. And I forgot to bring that up in the director's meeting.
Okay.
Are you thinking 6, 7, 6?
Yeah, probably depend on your schedule. We could do it at 5. It usually takes about 5 minutes because we usually don't have any other agenda items. It's
What
just.
time's going to work for the council, majority of the council?
Are they going to be done by then?
6 o'clock?
Depends on when the county gets me their information, but I
Oh.
think we plan on 5.
On the calendar it says 4:30.
Because I think they meet at 3.
Oh, on our calendar?
Yeah.
For the 27th?
For the 27th. Kathy, it's already listed here at 4:30.
I know, I guessed.
No, that's okay. Just tell, if that works.
Well, the problem is the county has to get us the results and they usually send them like at 4:50 something.
Say 5 o'clock.
So let's say
Last
we've done
year-
5.
Last time it was 2 weeks later.
Well, so this is 2 weeks after the election.
2 weeks
Oh, you're
after
right.
this.
And so.
Sorry.
But
So
this
5
is,
o'clock?
but usually that, they're,
Say 5
you know,
o'clock.
required to send us the results.
5 o'clock for me
But sometimes
is-
it's late in the afternoon. 5 o'clock should be fine. That's what we've done in the past. So if we want to set that for 5 would be great.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, anything else? Open mic. Okay, Scott, you want to, I don't have anything. Nope, it's just been a wonderful summer, but anyway, that, and thank you for all of you last night for helping out there. Appreciate that. Scott, do you, anything on our August 20 council meeting? We need.
Just, one of the things is we're working towards working on our deer population issue. We've talked with the state. The state says one of the things you have to do is you have to have an ordinance that says that it's illegal for our residents to feed deer, elk, and moose. That's step 1. So we will have that on the agenda on the 20th for us to make sure that that's illegal to do
Does
that.
my apple tree count as feeding them? Because that's what they eat.
I think it is purposely figuring out a way for them to eat. Well, Tina's working on the language on that one, so. It's done. Yeah. So we'll have that in a couple weeks. And I don't remember if we have a couple planning items or not. We were aiming to have our solid waste and recycle agreement ready for that day as well. So those are just the only items we have right now.
Okay. Well, with that, anything else on our calendar that we need to review? Other than I do bring up on Labor Day is September the 2nd. And so our first meeting in September is the 3rd. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, I'll be here then. Okay. So so with that, we'll do the 3rd and the 17th of September. If there's anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Walker, a second by Councilmember Anderson. All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned.